Well, traditionally, computer chips have been made from silicon, an earthly element as common as sand. But now, as technology reporter John Crump shows us, a Silicon Valley firm is using another material for chips that will make computers run faster than ever.
Computers in the workplace and in the home are made with chips of silicon. However, many of their larger brothers are made with chips of gallium arsenide, which is a synthetic compound that allows electrons to flow through the chips 3 to 5 times faster than silicon does. That's why we also see gallium arsenide used in satellites and missiles. Now, Gazelle Microcircuits is making chips for commercial use.
What we've done, though, is taken gallium arsenide material and made it as easy to use as silicon. So rather than being restricted to very, very sophisticated applications, now gallium arsenide can be used across a wide range of applications.
That means for personal computers, telecommunications, and workstations. Gazelle has filed for 15 patents for its designs, which allow gallium arsenide to replace silicon chips at places in a computer where data tends to slow. But it's selective replacement.
Not all systems require the state-of-the-art and speed. As a result, it'll tend to be a somewhat smaller market and have a premium in cost.
In the personal computers and workstations, price is a very important subject. So this device will most likely be used in those workstations and high-end PCs that are very performance sensitive.
Gazelle says it can make these commercial gallium arsenide chips at about 1/10 what they used to cost. And that should be attractive to computer makers wanting to soup up their machines without jumping into the new, more costly microprocessors. If Gazelle's approach to replacing some key silicon chips with gallium arsenide proves right, the company expects to be a billion-dollar company within 10 years' time. In Silicon Valley, John Crump, the San Jose News Channel.
Well, right now, more than 50 computer companies are looking at gallium arsenide chips as a way to speed up their machines. Those firms include Apple, Digital Equipment, and Data General, among others.
DARPA. From high-tech weapons to computers, the Pentagon's research arm is funding new technologies. Why has it become a political hot potato? From Austin, Texas, this week's Business World guest, Dr. Robert Noyes, CEO of the semiconductor consortium, Semitech. Also this week, paying the price for research and development. Companies like Amgen devote plenty to R&D. Why does Wall Street look askance? And a profile of an R&D scientist. Intel's Justin Ratner thinks inventing computers is just ducky.
From ABC News, this is Business World with Sander Vanocur and Stephen Ogg. Now from New York, here's Sander Vanocur.
One of the major disputes likely to arise during the White House congressional budget talks is the over $295 billion proposed for defense. Yet one item in the defense budget has prompted a sort of role reversal. Some members of Congress looking for defense cuts still favor level or increased funding of the Pentagon's main research arm, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, while the administration tries to hold the line overall but wants to see a DARPA cut. While corporate research and development over the past decade has grown by 50%, defense R&D is up by 92%. Why has the Pentagon R&D become a political hot potato? In part, it's a matter of whose policy is this anyway?
We have been funded by DARPA for the last year and a half, and without DARPA support, we would not have made nearly the progress we've been able to make.
Terra Computer is designing a new supercomputer, and by the time it gets off the drawing board, Terra hopes it will be the fastest of its type by using chips made from a substance faster and more efficient than the silicon used in today's computers. Called gallium arsenide, it's the backbone of new devices made by Gazelle Microcircuits.
Recently, DARPA put $4 million of new capital in for the development of new technologies, primarily for data communication circuits, fiber optic communication circuits.
DARPA's investment in Gazelle was the first under a new program authorized by Congress, which may actually let the Pentagon get $1 return on its investment if the company is financially successful. But it was the last made by Dr. Craig Fields before he was transferred out of his job as director of DARPA to a less visible Pentagon post.
His superiors in the Bush administration had just been so committed to not letting the government get involved in this in any way that they just decided to fire him, to make an example out of him.
It's not only computers and chips that benefit from DARPA's $1.2 billion budget. The agency funds a wide range of projects, from those with primarily defense applications, like anti-submarine warfare and advanced fighters, to those with commercial uses, like the Pegasus satellite launch system, and among its most controversial, high-definition television.
I don't think we can ever catch up with the Japanese unless we make major changes of the sort that Craig Fields was trying to make over there. And
DARPA's policies of promoting new technologies have become the center of a dispute between members of Congress who favor a government role for encouraging specific industries to keep the U.S. competitive, and conservatives, both in and out of the administration, who don't.
I do not want the government promoting particular technologies on the assumption that these technologies are going to be the ones in which we're going to be good at 15, 20 years from now.
Some people have a commitment to a laissez-faire ideology that's almost a religious commitment. They don't want the federal government to do anything, even in an area like national defense, where we need to be active in developing the kinds of new technologies that will be important in the future.
The debate is particularly heated because the Pentagon, while proposing to boost overall defense spending next year by almost $4 billion, wants to cut $100 million out of DARPA's budget.
The systems that we do procure must be superior in their quality to those of any potential adversary. So I think high technology, the kind of high technology that's fostered by DARPA, will become increasingly important, even in a declining defense budget environment.
The debate focuses on whether DARPA is the right place to support new technologies, or if government should be in that business at all.
DARPA has focused on those areas vital to defense, and also those areas which are described as dual-use areas, vital to both defense and the civilian economy. We now need to have an agency that looks at those which may not have a defense application.
The issue is whether a policy is likely over time, given what we know now, is more likely to produce successes than failures. Now, the overall record of American government support of technology has really been rather bleak.
Still, DARPA has sponsored a number of technologies with commercial promise, among them the National Aerospace Plane and parallel processing computers. Gazelle's Jerry Crowley feels that DARPA's money can also make the promise of gallium arsenide devices into a commercial success.
There's a whole host of applications that are using our products both for military and commercial value.
Business World asked representatives of the administration and the Pentagon to appear in this report, but they declined. Dr. Craig Fields said he would appear if his Pentagon superiors approved. They did not. In just a minute, the head of one company hoping R&D will keep an entire industry in the chips. Semitech CEO, Dr. Robert Noyce.
ABC News Business World, brought to you by Nissan.
This week's Business World guest is a legend, the co-inventor of the device which sparked the computer revolution, the microchip. He founded and ran chipmaker Intel, and then went on to guide the industry consortium designed to advance semiconductor manufacturing. Semitech CEO Dr. Robert Noyce joins me and my colleague Stephen Ogg from ABC affiliate KVUE in Austin, Texas. Dr. Noyce, at the bottom of this dispute about whether the private sector or the government should invest in high tech, isn't the real issue that we haven't got enough capital in this country to invest?
That's certainly one of them. Our savings rate is so low that it's a lot more attractive for other countries to invest in American high tech than it is for Americans.
Is the government a better judge of what's required in terms of economic national interest than the private sector?
Well, I think the private sector is going to pick what they should work on. On the other hand, I think the government should be interested in who wins, whether it's the Americans or the foreigners. After all, we want those high value-added jobs in America rather than having them overseas.
The Defense Advanced DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, part of the Defense Department, they've been criticized in some areas for wanting to look into high-definition TV. To what extent should this agency be allowed to investigate or do research in areas that could have primarily civilian applications?
Well, I think that the military obviously is now dependent totally on dual-use technologies. If the basic commercial technology isn't available, it won't be available for the Defense Department to use either. Semiconductor industry is a good example of that. The Defense Department uses 9% of the output of the industry, so most of the R&D in the industry is supported by the commercial market. Therefore, the industry has to be strong in the commercial market in order to make the defense needs available.
So, in effect, your answer is yes, they should be involved in research that may have important civilian spin-offs.
Well, I think in order for them to carry out their mission, which is to be sure that the technology is available for our military, they're going to have to get involved in the general question of the defense industrial base and the strength of that manufacturing sector and that technological sector.
Let me ask you one question about Semitech. It's almost 2 years old. Aside from getting everything set up and getting everybody working together, have there been any major scientific advances so far?
Remember, Semitech is a manufacturing consortium. Our science has been good in the semiconductor area, but the Japanese in particular have targeted this area and taken away the high volume production. That's the commercial base on which R&D rests. So the answer to our problem in semiconductors is to get manufacturing back in the U.S. So we've been working on that technology. Yes, we have made several advances, significant in terms of the throughput, efficiency, and reliability of our production equipment.
When you say the Japanese do, are you talking about the Japanese private sector, or are you talking about the Ministry of International Trade and Industry?
It's obviously a combination of the two. The private sector gets together, decides what should be done, media endorses that, and promotes the consortia in Japan to promote that particular industry that the private sector has agreed upon.
It is said in the White House, John Sununu, the Chief of Staff, Darman, the Budget Director, and Michael Boskin, the Chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors, opposes DARPA. Do you know why they oppose government help to the private sector in high tech?
I don't think they oppose DARPA. They have had a problem with doing commercial activities, but I think that what we need to emphasize again is that our defense capabilities depend upon the commercial success of the private sector. We're in a battle here, which is now largely economic, not military, and we need to support and be sure that the American industry is strong enough to rearm if we ever have to.
Thank you very much, Dr. Noyce. Thanks for joining us here on Business World.
Thank you for allowing us.
When we come back, the stock market and corporate R&D. Sometimes a healthy research budget is no prescription for a stock success. Research and development, R&D, the things corporations do to create new products and get them to market. But all too often, R&D is considered expendable to help improve the short-term bottom line, a trend that's starting to show. In the 20-year period from 1967 to 1987, R&D as a percentage of gross national product dropped in the U.S. while growing significantly in Japan and West Germany. But as business editor Stephen Ogg reports, sometimes bucking that trend line pays off.
When Grant Bennett was 15 years old, his kidneys failed. A year later, he underwent a transplant from his mother. That worked for 6.5 years. Now he's 25. And for the past year and a half, he's been back on kidney dialysis, 5 hours a day, 3 days a week. It was discouraging, at least until he began taking a new drug called Epogen, which helps produce red blood cells.
It's meant a great improvement in my lifestyle, and this will be the first summer that I've really been feeling the effects of the Epogen. And I plan to get out and really enjoy the summer as opposed to the past few summers that I really haven't felt like doing anything.
Epogen came on the market just 1 year ago. It was developed by Amgen, one of a growing number of biotechnology firms. To develop Epogen and other pharmaceuticals, Amgen spends almost 90% of sales dollars on research, the highest percentage of any American corporation, according to the most recent Business Week survey.
The lesson is that well-conceived, well-executed R&D pays off very, very handsomely for everyone. In our case, for patients, for doctors, nurses and pharmacists, our customers, pays off for employees, it creates jobs, and it pays off for the investors who provide the money in the first place.
When Amgen needed money for research, like other small new companies, it sought out a partner. It found Johnson & Johnson. In return for money, Amgen gave Johnson & Johnson distribution rights.
What happened later down the line was that Amgen discovered they had a blockbuster of a product, and suddenly the deal that looked good to them when they needed the money for the research and development didn't look like such a good deal now, when all they were going to get was a royalty from the Johnson & Johnson sales.
Amgen may also be an advertisement for those who say Wall Street rewards heavy spending on R&D. Recently, it's been trading around its record high.
Equity investors have put in about $200 million into Amgen from its beginning. That $200 million is now worth $1.2 billion at the current stock price. So, in our case at least, R&D has certainly rewarded those investors who gave us the money to do the R&D in the first place.
But that does not always happen. Take the case of Merck & Company, the huge pharmaceutical firm. Last November, Merck announced a big increase in research and development, up 14% to $855 million. That would hurt near-term profits. The result? The stock price plunged nearly $4 a share the same day. And that was not the first time R&D expenses hurt Merck's stock performance. Another was back in the 1970s.
Merck sacrificed short-term earnings for several years and put tremendous amounts of money into research and development. The stock was out of favor for a very long time. And then suddenly, the pipeline started to fill up and products started burping out.
The result? By the mid-'80s, Merck stock took off. But Merck and Amgen are among the exceptions. For most of American industry outside of pharmaceuticals and some high-technology firms, research and development expense averages less than 3.5% of sales. But America's foreign competition is spending about a third more. One reason is a short-term outlook at many American firms, says Congressman Mel Levine, who's active in high-technology causes. He's called for tax changes.
And if you have actually held a productive asset for 5 years or more, you should have a very low tax, which will encourage long-term holdings. But if you are involved in short-term speculative investments, we might consider taxing those profits at an even higher rate than we currently do.
Levine has also introduced legislation to create a Technology Corporation of America, sort of a U.S. version of Japan's influential Ministry of International Trade and Industry. But don't look for support from the Bush administration. It opposes virtually any government attempt to single out any industry for special help. Sandy?
Thanks, Steve. Turning to the record week on Wall Street, at Friday's closing bell, the Dow Jones Industrials finished the week up by more than 18 points, hitting new highs on 3 out of 5 trading days. Last week, our panel of stock market experts from around the country predicted an up week. Our panel's consensus is for a down week ahead. Some of our panelists expect the market to consolidate before moving up. Panelist Lou Holland, a Chicago-based money manager, is particularly bullish about bonds.
Well, I like bonds. On a shorter-term basis, I think it's possible that the long government bond will move back above 9%. But I think if we look out over the next 6 to 18 months, I think bonds will generate a higher rate of return than common stocks.
When we return, one R&D scientist who doesn't monkey around with his formula for success.